Good afternoon, and thanks for hopping into this special edition here on the ESEN Network, also known as the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. Dustin Reese, and joined today with our newest member of the team, Phil Tross. Phil, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. How you doing, Dustin?
Not bad, not bad. Getting excited for today's episode because it is the Heisman debate, and right now, I think it's safe to say there's at least three front runners for the Heisman, but realistically, two after what happened in the Pac 12 championship game last night, where I think it's going to come down to Michael Penix Jr. and Jaden Daniels as to who takes home the Heisman. I'll give you your take first. Make the case for why you think Jaden Daniels should get the Heisman this year.
Hey, thanks, Dustin. And before I even get into that, I got to shout out Michael Penix in Washington, man, because even with Oregon's late surge, that really was a no contest, man. Washington came out firing with a 17-0 lead. They had a little stall after halftime, but Michael Penix is on a different level. But unfortunately, even with that different level, Jaden Daniels continues to rise to the cream of the crop. Like me and Justin talked about behind the scenes, Jaden Daniels leads the FBS in total yards, rushing yards by a quarterback, total touchdowns, most passing plays of 20-plus yards. And if it wasn't for the LSU's historically worst defense ever, we'd be undefeated, and he'd have the Heisman wrapped up already. I mean, he's been the most phenomenal player in all of college football this entire season, and his growth and progression from last year to this year has been phenomenal. I mean, one of the first true freshmen to ever start for the Arizona State squad back in 2019, I believe. Had some rough years under Herm Edwards, but when he transferred between Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, and that LSU offensive staff, is taking his game to the next level for sure, man. I think his Heisman to lose. And yeah, Bo Nix has had a good season, but his average depth of target is like 15 yards, 15 yards past the line of scrimmage. He lives in a screen game, right? He relies on his athletes on the outside to make those phenomenal plays for him. And it doesn't put that much burden on him to really be phenomenal. So again, I'm proud of Bo Nix and what he's done from Auburn to now, but like you said, Dustin, it's really a two-horse race, and I would even say it's a one-horse race, man.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the number side of things, Jaden Daniels does have the best numbers of pretty much any player. He's got 3,812 yards passing with 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He's got like another 700 or 800 yards rushing, I think, with another 10 or 11 touchdowns. So from that side of things, yes, he's by far the best player in college football. I'm not going to say he's not the best player in college football because he is. The only
He's
thing
a
that's
thousand
kind of
yards rushing, actually.
yeah, the only thing that goes against him, and we talked about this kind of behind the scenes, is there's only been 3 players in NCAA history that have won the Heisman when they have 3 losses: Tim Tebow, Lamar Jackson, and Robert Griffin III. And Daniels is making a case to be that fourth guy, but the other 3 guys that won the Heisman when they had 3 losses, there were no undefeated teams the years that they won it. And that's kind of, I think, the hurdle that Jaden Daniels has to get over is there's still 5 undefeated teams in college football yet. And
That's true.
one of the undefeated teams has the other Heisman frontrunner running the show in Michael Penix. And the thing that Penix has done better than Jaden Daniels, and I know you can't put the blame on Jaden Daniels for the defensive side of things because he doesn't play defense, but the 3 losses that Jaden Daniels had came against top 25 programs. And if you look at Washington's schedule and what Michael Penix had to go through, going through Oregon twice, going through USC before they kind of went into their slump, going on the road to win at a very good Oregon State team, a very good Utah team, and then they even got Arizona, who ended up being 17th in the country at the end of the season. Michael Penix did not have an easy schedule. And you can make the case that the Pac-12, even though this is the final year that the Pac-12 is going to be a football conference, the Pac-12 was arguably the best conference in college football this year, top to bottom.
Wow.
Because you look at Oregon and Washington. Both of those teams, in my opinion, deserve to be in the college football playoff. Even though Oregon has 2 losses, both of their losses came to Washington. Both of them are 3-point losses. You put Oregon up against Michigan, up against Georgia, up against Florida State, I think Oregon could beat all 3 of those teams. It's just the fact that they had to play Washington twice, and they lost by twice, that they're going to miss out on the college football playoff. And they were playing, in my opinion, the best college football the last month and a half since their last loss to Washington. When you look at the scores of their
So
games.
this is how I will counter that, Dustin. I agree with everything. I think Washington would blow the brakes off of Ohio State and Michigan. I mean,
Yeah.
I believe JJ McCarthy is overrated. I don't know how you could be a quarterback of a team that only passes the ball maybe 15 times per game. But LSU has the fourth strongest strength of schedule in all the FBS. And I agree. We lost to Florida State, which was a tough opponent with Jordan Travis. I hope he heals up good. Jared Verse, those guys on defense. We lost a very good Alabama squad that started surging around that time. And who's our third loss to? Ole Miss, right? We lost a shootout to Ole Miss, again, our defense. What I would say for Jaden Daniels is that the margin for error for him was so thin. Like, we had to score a touchdown every single drive, or we wouldn't win the game, which is a lot of pressure. But he's risen to that occasion every single time. And that's to take nothing away from Michael Penix Jr. because like you kind of educated me on, Dustin, his progression and his rise from, was it Indiana you said he came from before?
Yeah, like for people who are not familiar with Michael Penix, the first 2 years of his college career, he was at Indiana. And in those 2 years with Indiana, he battled some injuries. He had a torn ACL his freshman year, and then he ended up breaking his collarbone against Ohio State his sophomore year. But those 2 years at Indiana, he was 10-3 as a starter, had 28 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and was actually beating Ohio State 28-10 before he got hurt in that game. So Penix was doing a lot of what he's doing now on a team that had far less superior talent and a head coach that really is not that great of a head coach.
So he's been a winner pretty much everywhere he's been.
Yep.
And again, you can't go wrong with either one of these two guys, and even their pro prospects, right? I think I wasn't a Michael Penix fan in the very beginning, but if you compare him to the top guys in the draft, or supposed to be the top guys in the draft, like your Caleb Williams, your Drake Mays, your Drew Sanders, I think it's, to me personally, I got Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Michael Penix as my top 3 quarterbacks. I think Drake May had a phenomenal year last year, but he's kind of fallen back to earth this year. Caleb Williams, he struggled mightily. Again, they have a bad defense too, but he made some crucial mistakes in crucial games that you wouldn't expect from a number 1 overall player to make.
And that's the other argument that I would make for Daniels and Penix too, is the one thing that those two guys do better than Caleb Williams and any other quarterback in the country is they never panic when they are under pressure. Like, they may make a mistake. Yes, it's going to happen, but they shake it off and get right back out there on their next drive and then lead their team either to a field goal or a touchdown. And especially when you look at the games against like USC and Oregon, every time Michael Penix was like put in a pressure situation, not only did he rise to the occasion, but even in the fourth quarter yesterday, the throws that he was making in that fourth quarter yesterday, 2 things were going to happen. It was going to be an incomplete pass or caught by his receiver. He was literally putting that ball in a spot where only his receiver could get to it, or nobody was going to get to it.
And that was especially prominent, like you said, in the second half when he was hitting Rome. I'm not on to butcher his name, Rome Odunze, on the right side of the field. I mean, he's putting the ball right into his breadbasket, where he's had to keep running full speed, and he's right there for him. So I mean, Michael Penix was throwing some darts all across the field last night. He had one kind of egregious interception, but other than that, he climbed the pocket well. He maneuvered around pressure well, and they controlled that game from start to finish, in my opinion.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't really care who wins the Heisman this year. Like, every year I go into it and I have like a favorite to win it. Yes, like Penix has been the guy that I pretty much been backing since the first 2 weeks of the season. I've been on the Penix train for a while just because I watched him last year at Washington too, and he put up the same numbers that he put up this year last year. He's going to have more passing yards this year than he had last year because he's getting the extra game because of making the college football playoff. But outside of that, he's pretty much done exactly what he did last year with, you could say, a little bit more offensive talent, but at the same time, it was really only Rome Odunze that he had back as pretty much his major connection. But the thing I like about Penix is he reminds me a lot of Tua, because everyone said the left-handed quarterbacks were never a great NFL quarterback, and up until Tua started doing Tua things, left-handed quarterbacks never really panned out in the NFL. Penix is very similar to Tua. He's a left-handed quarterback that has a big arm. He's got a weird throwing motion just like Tua does, but when that ball comes out of their hand, it's a freaking frozen rope rocket, and you see the throws that he makes, and that's kind of the big reason why I want the Vikings to take Penix in the first round, because you put Penix with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, the throws that he can make to those 2 receivers, and then you have Hawkinson over the middle, it's going to be a tough offense to defend if you can add that to that mix.
You know what? I would almost argue and say that Penix, his ceiling, or at least his floor, is a little higher than Tua's was coming out at the same time. Yeah. I mean, Penix is a little older, but he has more experience. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit taller. He can process just as fast as Tua can process the field. So, I mean, the upside is clearly there for Penix. And for me, I'm not much of a Heisman guy. This year is more of like a consolation prize because we're not making it to the college football playoffs.
Yep, exactly.
But for me, this is big because one, LSU has been like a quarterback purgatory up until Joe Burrow. So to say we've had 2 Heisman winners in the last 4 years that's crucial to our recruitment pitch and to the changing the culture of LSU. So again, would I rather be playing for a CFP? Of course. But I'll take a Heisman. I'll take a top 5 recruiting class any day.
Exactly. That's kind of the same thing that I'm at too, where it's like the Heisman is kind of like the MVP in the NFL, where 99.9% of times it's going to go to a quarterback. And 99.9% of the time it's going to go to the team with the best record. You see it in the NFL where Patrick Mahomes got the MVP last year. But realistically, Jalen Hurts should have gotten it for what he did in Philadelphia last year. But because Kansas City was Kansas City, Mahomes is going to get it. And you pretty much see that in college football. Like Caleb Williams did deserve it last year because USC was a great team last year. He put up good numbers and everything. If you're going based off of a number side of things, Jaden Daniels should get it. But again, are they going to look at the overall win-loss record and be like, Penix is undefeated, Penix is in the college football playoff, we're going to kind of treat it the same way as we treat the NFL, where the award's going to go to the best team. And that's kind of why I never really get too into these things. It's just nice to know that players that were not on the Heisman radar at the beginning of the season are now the ones that are pretty much going to win it.
Exactly. And I'm sure the betting odds will change over the next few weeks. But right now, I believe they have Jaden Daniels number 1, Bo Nix 2, and Penix 3. Again, I think Bo should just drop out at this point in time, and it should be a 2-horse race.
Yeah.
And Penix may get some more looks as the season continues. I mean, we'll have to see, but it'll be a tough race because we have nothing but time right now. It'll be a tough race.
Yep, and I think that's all the time Phil and I have for you today. I'm pretty sure that once we get a little further along here and we get closer to knowing who's officially going to be at New York City for the Heisman presentation, we might do another one of these and kind of break down all of the finalists that are there. But Phil, thanks for popping on, and I'm sure we're going to do this again.
Yes, sir. It's been great, Dustin. Appreciate you.